Last time we talked about the big names versus code, IntelliJ, Vim, Emacs. And many of you said in the comments, but Professor, what about the others? So here we are. Part 2 brings more IDs, more personality types, and yes, more roasted sacred cows. I'm an IT professor, and today we're digging deeper into what your IDE choice reveals about your coding identity. Let's start with a classic that shaped an entire generation of C and C++ programmers. Code blocks. If this is your daily driver, you're not just a programmer, you're a survivor. You don't use code blocks, you endure through it. You fought with include paths that seem to reconfigure themselves randomly every time you open a project. You've wrestled with linker errors that produce error messages so cryptic they might as well be ancient poetry. You've experienced the deep existential dread of trying to compile a simple hello world and ending up in a rabbit hole of compiler settings, forum posts from 2008, and unanswered Stack Overflow questions. The user interface looks like someone ported Windows 95 into a science fair project, and somehow that's part of its strange charm. I speak from personal experience. Code blocks was the very first IDE I ever used as a computing student. It taught me persistence. It taught me that when your tools fight you, you learn far more than when they cooperate. That suffering made me a better programmer because I had to understand what was actually happening. Now let's talk about the real Visual Studio. Not VS Code, the full-fat, enterprise-grade, nuclear-powered Microsoft Visual Studio. This isn't an IDE, it's a lifestyle choice that demands commitment. It's the type of software that commands a moment of silence every time you launch it, because your computer is about to go on a journey. It's so feature-rich that it feels like Microsoft Word decided to get a computer science degree and then a PhD. If you use this, you're likely working on something that requires serious engineering, firmware for medical devices, a multi-million-line C++ codebase that predates your manager's career, or enterprise.NET applications powering Fortune 500 supply chains. This IDE can compile, refactor, debug, profile, test, deploy, containerize, and probably brew your morning coffee. But it takes 5 minutes to open and might crash if you breathe on it wrong. When it works, it's absolutely unstoppable. And when it breaks, you learn what real debugging means. Neovim users. You don't just install Neovim, you enter a blood pact with the terminal itself. If you're on Neovim, you've crossed the point of no return. You've written more Lua configuration this week than actual business logic. Your setup is so deeply personalized that even you don't fully understand it anymore, and that's exactly how you prefer it. You've got plugins managing other plugins, a status bar that looks like it belongs in a NASA control room, and split panes that rearrange themselves based on your current file type. You don't click things, you navigate using keyboard combinations that sound like cheat codes from a 90s fighting game. But here's the honest truth, Neovim users are incredibly efficient. You might spend 6 weeks configuring your environment, but once it's dialed in, you're editing code at the speed of thought while the rest of us are still waiting for our extensions to load. That trade-off, investing time up front for speed later, is a philosophy worth understanding. Zed is that cool new editor that shows up at the party wearing all black, built in Rust, and claiming it's faster, smoother, and smarter than everything else on the market. If you use Zed, you're an early adopter who tells everyone about your zero-latency editing experience within the first 5 minutes of meeting them. Then there's Notepad++, lightweight, snappy, and completely unbothered by trends or hype cycles. If you're using Notepad++, you've probably been in tech since jQuery was considered modern. You open 5 files at once, tweak a config, edit a batch script, SSH into a production server, and fix the bug all before your first coffee of the day. No themes. No extensions. No drama. Just raw skill and an editor that opens in under a second. And Helix, what happens when you take the philosophy of Vim and rebuild it in Rust with sensible defaults and no baggage from the 80s? It's modal, minimal, and unapologetically opinionated. You don't customize Helix, you conform to its way of thinking. And that clarity is genuinely refreshing. Let's talk about Kate. KDE's quiet, capable editor that nobody talks about because it's too normal to be interesting. If you're on Linux and you use Kate, you're probably the most emotionally stable person on your entire development team. You didn't chase the Neovim hype train. You didn't jump on the Zed bandwagon. You just wanted a responsive editor with syntax highlighting, tabs, split panes, and absolutely zero drama. Kate users don't yell in meetings, they quietly push high-quality code, document their work thoroughly, and go back to their latte. These are the unsung heroes who keep projects running smoothly. And finally, Spyder. If you use Spyder, you're a data scientist or a researcher. You live in a world of plots, arrays, and error messages so long they require horizontal scrolling. Your workspace is split into a variable explorer, an IPython console, and enough screen space to display 12 scatter plots simultaneously. You're not building APIs, you're discovering insights from data. That's a fundamentally different kind of programming that deserves its own specialized tool. Code blocks, Visual Studio, Neovim, Z, Notepad++, Helix, Kate, Spyder, each one tells a unique story about how you work and what you value as a developer. Some of you want speed above all else. Some of you want rock-solid stability. Some just want something that opens instantly and stays completely out of your way. Every single one of these choices is completely valid. The important thing is knowing why you chose what you chose. Understand your own priorities and pick the tool that matches them. I'm an IT professor. If this series is helping you think more deeply about your development tools, hit subscribe. Drop a comment. Which IDE from Part 2 do you use? I read every single response. I'll see you in Part 3, where we cover mobile development, data science, cloud IDs, and the truly unhinged editor choices.